Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Michael, and on this channel, we don't just read books, we extract what matters, we test it against our own lives, and we allow it to shape how we think, act, and build because knowledge without application is it's just merely entertainment. I hope you've all had a good weekend and a good start to your week. If you could please give me a thumbs up just to let me know if the sound is coming through. Okay, that's fantastic. And what we are after on this channel is transformation. Today we arrive at chapter 15 of Bushido, The Soul of Japan. And before we step into it, I want to briefly revisit where I've just come from or where we've been. In chapter 14, across both parts, we explored the training and the position of women within the Bushido tradition. What stood out to me was not hierarchy, uh, but responsibility. Women were not trained merely to exist within a household, they were trained to uphold moral order within it. They cultivated emotional control, loyalty, composure under pressure, and quiet resilience because they understood that the character of a generation would often be shaped in ordinary moments. And as I reflected on that, I couldn't help but think about influence in my own life. Influence doesn't always stand on a stage. Sometimes influence looks like a parent staying calm during chaos. Sometimes it looks like a partner choosing patience instead of ego during disagreement. Sometimes it looks like someone preparing diligently for responsibilities no one else sees. That idea of unseen influence leads us directly into chapter 15, which is titled The Influence of Bushido. Chapter 15 shifts the lens forward. Instead of examining individual virtues in isolation, it asks what happens when those virtues become embedded in society. When honor is normalized, when discipline is expected, when loyalty is assumed, when self restraint is practiced, what kind of culture emerges? And as I prepared this chapter, I found myself asking a more uncomfortable question. What culture am I reinforcing through my daily behavior? Because culture is not created by declarations, it is created by habits. If I am consistently organized, accountable, and disciplined, am I building an environment of reliability? Am I, uh, if I am reflective, distracted, or inconsistent, am I building something very different? Before I begin reading, if you are finding value in this series, I really appreciate if you like the video, share it with someone who values growth, and by simply subscribing so we can continue this journey together. It doesn't cost anything, but it does support the channel and it helps us get through the message through to more people. Now, let's step into chapter 15. If you have a copy of the book, uh, we are on the influence of Bushido. The influence of Bushido on the nation at large. We have brought into view only a few of the more prominent peaks which rise above the range of knightly virtues, in themselves so much more elevated than the general level of our national life. As the sun in its rising first tips the highest peaks with russet hue, and then gradually casts its rays on the valley below, so the ethical system which first enlightened the military order drew in course of time followers from amongst the masses. Democracy raises up a natural prince for its leader, and aristocracy infuses a princely spirit among the people. Virtues are no less contagious than vices. There needs but one wise man in a company, and all are wise. So rapid is the contagion, says Emerson. No social class or caste can resist the diffusive power of moral influence. Prate as we may of the triumphant march of Anglo-Saxon liberty, rarely has it received impetus from the masses. Was it not rather the work of the squires and gentlemen? Very truly does Taine say, these three syllables, as used across the Channel, summarize the history of English society. Democracy may make self-confident retorts to such a statement and fling back the question, when Adam delved and Eve span, where then was the gentleman? All the more pity that a gentleman was not present in Eden. The first parents missed him sorely and paid a high price for his absence. Had he been there, not only would the garden have been more tastefully dressed, but they would have learned without painful experience that disobedience to Jehovah was disloyalty and dishonor, treason and rebellion. What Japan was, she owed to the samurai. They were not only the flower of the nation, but its root as well. All the gracious gifts of heaven flowed through them. Though they kept themselves socially aloof from the populace, they set a moral standard for them and guided them by their example. I admit Bushido had its esoteric and exoteric teachings. These were eudaimonistic, looking after the welfare and happiness of the commonalty, while those were archaic, emphasizing the practice of virtues for their own sake. In the most chivalrous days of Europe, knights formed numerically but a small fraction of the population. But, as Emerson says, in English literature, half the drama and all the novels, from Sir Philip Sidney or Sir Walter Scott, paint this figure, gentlemen. Right in place of Sidney and Scott, Chikamatsu and Bacon, and you have in a nutshell the main features of the literary history of Japan. The innumerable avenues of popular amusement and instruction, the theatres, the storytellers' booths, the preachers' dyers, and musical recitations, the novels, have taken for their chief theme the stories of the samurai. The peasants round the open fire in their huts never tire of repeating the achievements of Yoshitsune and his faithful retainer Benkei, or of the two brave Soga brothers. The dusky urchins listen with gaping mouths until the last stick burns out and the fire dies in its embers, still leaving their hearts aglow with the tale that is told. The clerks and the shop boys, after their day's work is over and the amado of the store are closed, gather together to relate the story of Nobunaga and Hideyoshi far into the night until slumber overtakes their weary eyes and transports them from the drudgery of the counter to the exploits of the field. The very babe just beginning to toddle is taught to lisp the adventures of Momotaro and daring conquer of Ogreland. Even girls are so imbued with the love of knightly deeds and virtues that, like Desdemona, they would seriously incline to devour with greedy ear the romance of the samurai. The samurai grew to be the beau ideal of the whole race, as among flowers the cherry is queen, and so among men the samurai is lord. So sang the populace. Debarred from commercial pursuits, the military class itself did not aid commerce, but there was no channel of human activity, no avenue of thought, which did not receive in some measure the impetus from Bushido. Intellectual and moral Japan was directly or indirectly the work of knighthood. Mr. Mallock, in his exceedingly suggestive book, Aristocracy and Evolution, has eloquently told us that social evolution, insofar as it is other than biological, may be defined as the unintended result of the intentions of great men. Further, that historical progress is produced by a struggle, not among the community generally to live, but a struggle against a small section of the community to lead, to direct, to employ the majority in the best way. Whatever may be said about the soundness of his argument, these statements are amply verified in the part played by Bushi in the social progress, as far as it went, of our empire. How the spirit of Bushido permeated all social classes is also shown in the development of a certain order of men, known as Otokodate, the natural leaders of democracy. Staunch fellows were they, every inch of them strong with the strength of massive manhood, at once the spokesmen and the guardians of popular rights. They had each a following of hundreds and thousands of souls who preferred in the same fashion that samurai did to daimyo the willing service of limb and life, of body, chattels, and earthly honor. Backed by a vast multitude of rash and impetuous working men, those born bosses formed a formidable check to the rampancy of the two-sworded order. In manifold ways, as Bushido filtered down from the social class where it originated and acted as leaven amongst the masses, furnishing a moral standard for the whole people. The precepts of knighthood, begun at first as the glory of the elite, became in time an aspiration and inspiration to the nation at large, and though the populace could not attain the moral height of those loftier souls, yet Yamato Damashi, the soul of Japan, ultimately came to express the Volksgeist of the island realm. If religion is no more than morality touched by emotion, as Matthew Arnold defines it, few ethical systems are better entitled to the rank of religion than Bushido. Motori has put the mute utterance of the nation into words when he sings. Isles of best blessed Japan, should your Yamato spirit strangers seek to scan, say, scenting morn's sunlit air, blows the cherry wild and fair. Yes, the sakura has for ages been the favorite of our people and the emblem of our character. Mark particularly the terms of definition which the poet uses, the words the wild cherry flower scenting the morning sun. The Yamato spirit is not a tame, tender plant, but a wild in the sense of natural growth. It is indigenous to the soil. It is accidental. Its accidental qualities it may share with the flowers of other lands, but in its essence it remains the original spontaneous outgrowth of our clime. But its nativity is not its sole claim to our affection. The refinement and grace of its beauty appeal to our aesthetic sense as no other flower can. We cannot share the admiration of the Europeans for their roses, which lack the simplicity of our flower. Then, too, the thorns that are hidden beneath the sweetness of the rose, the tenacity with which she clings to life, as though loth or afraid to die rather than drop untimely, preferring to rot on her stem, her showy colors and heavy odors, all these are traits so unlike our flower, which carries no dagger or poison under its beauty, which is ever ready to depart life at the call of nature, whose colors are never gorgeous, and whose light fragrance never palls. Beauty of color and of form is limited in its showing. It is fixed quality of existence, whereas fragrance is volatile, ethereal, ethereal as the breathing of life. So, in all religious ceremonies, frankincense and myrrh play a prominent part. There is something spiritual in redolence. When the delicious perfume of the sakura quickens the morning air, as the sun in its course rises to illumine first the isles of the far east, few sensations are more serenely exhilarating than to inhale, as it were, the very breath of Boshe's day. When the Creator Himself is pictured as making new resolutions in his heart upon smelling a sweet savour, is it any wonder that the sweet smelling season of the cherry blossom should call forth the whole nation from the little habitations? Blame them not if for a time their limbs forget their toil and moil, and their hearts their pangs and sorrows. Their brief pleasure ended, they return to their daily tasks with new strength and new resolutions. Thus, in ways more than one, is the sakura the flower of the nation. Is, then, this flower so sweet and evanescent, blown whithersoever the wind listeth, and shedding a puff of perfume, ready to vanish forever? Is this flower the type of the Yamato spirit? Is the soul of Japan so frailly mortal? When I finished reading this chapter just now, when I pre-read it before this live, I didn't feel as though I had uh, studied history. I felt confronted because Bushido did not shape society through speeches. It shaped society because enough individuals decided to live by a standard, whether convenient or not. And that's where the dialogue becomes personal. Um, if I say I value health, but I consistently choose comfort over discipline, what influence am I actually embodying? If I say I want wealth and stability, but I allow disorganization to dominate my schedule, what code am I truly living by? Influence begins long before visibility. For example, organizing time effectively sounds like a productivity conversation, but in reality, it is a character conversation. If I plan my day the night before, allocate focused hours to meaningful work, protect time for training, reflection, and family, and then eliminate unnecessary distractions, am I doing more than managing tasks? Am I constructing stability? Over months and years, that stability becomes mental clarity. Mental clarity reduces stress. It reduce reduce stress. It just improves your health, and improved health increases longevity and capacity, and that capacity allows me to build wealth without sacrificing my well-being. Notice how everything sort of connects. This chapter makes clear that Bushido's influence was not fragmented, it was holistic. It touched leadership, economics, relationships, education, and warfare because it was rooted in internal discipline. The same principle applies today. Take financial growth as an example. Wealth is rarely built through dramatic moments. It is built through steady alignment, investing consistently instead of reacting emotionally to markets, delaying gratification when income rises instead of inflating lifestyle, choosing long term assets over short term validation. These are modern expressions of restraint and foresight, virtues Bushido would recognize immediately. And what about, say, relationships? Lasting relationships are formed when actions align with words over time. If I commit to showing up at a certain time, I arrive prepared. If I promise partnership, I act in partnership even when the moods fluctuate. If I disagree, I respond with composure rather than dominance. These behaviors seem small in isolation, but collectively they create trust. Trust creates safety. Safety creates stability, and stability creates growth. So, this is true in marriage, it's true in business, it's true in friendships. Mental growth plays a central role in all of this. Without awareness, habits remain invisible. I might blame circumstances for my stress while ignoring that I consistently overcommit. I might blame lack of opportunity while avoiding skill development. Consciousness disrupts that cycle. When I observe myself honestly, my excuses, my avoidance, my emotional triggers, I regain power. And with power comes responsibility. And that responsibility is not heavy, but it is liberating. When we take full ownership of outcomes, we stop waiting for ideal conditions. We adjust our schedules. We improve our communication. We refine our systems. We train our bodies. We sharpen our focus. Gradually, problems that once felt overwhelming shrink because we are no longer compounding them through neglect. Freedom from problems does not mean a life without challenges. It means reducing self-created chaos so that energy can be directed towards purposeful effort. Bushido's societal influence was the result of individuals reducing internal chaos and increasing external reliability. And that is something we can apply today. If you want happiness, build daily rituals that stabilize your nervous system. Morning walks, strength training, journaling, prayer, or even silence. If you want success, identify the one task each day that meaningfully moves your long-term objective forward and complete it before distraction claims your attention. If you want wealth, create systems that automate discipline, automatic investments, scheduled reviews, intentional budgeting. If you want strong relationships, protect uninterrupted time and listen without preparing your defense. None of this is dramatic, it all compounds. The deeper lesson of this chapter for me is that influence is quiet but relentless. Every decision contributes to an atmosphere, every habit reinforces a direction, every standard either elevates or erodes the environment around us. So the real question is whether we have influence. The is not That's not the real question. I apologize. It's not whether we have influence. The question is whether we are intentional with it. Bushido created cohesion because enough individuals internalized a moral framework and lived it consistently. In our modern world, where distraction is abundant and standards are negotiable, choosing a personal code may be one of the most powerful decisions we make. A code that prioritizes health, that values responsibility, that honors commitments, that seeks contribution over ego, and that organizes time around purpose rather than impulse. When that code is lived long enough, stability follows, and from stability flows clarity, growth, prosperity, and peace. So, thank you for being here and engaging in this journey with me. If this chapter challenged you or resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone who is building intentionally, and subscribe so we can continue exploring these ideas together. I will be putting some posts up on the community post, so if you could turn your notification button on, I'd really appreciate that so that you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next chapter. Let's keep building. Thank you for joining me on Michael Reads. The next one. Ta-da.